about you guys?
She has a different voice and a different understanding.
Hello and welcome to OffSite Dirt. I'm excited for the series. This is my favorite. It is called The Dirt, and the folks we have on are exciting. My name is Wille. I'm joined with Audree Grubesic. And who do we have with us today, Audree?
We have Eric Law. He is the CEO of Urban Machine. And Eric, can you just give us a brief background of how you kind of got started and interested in technology and working in construction?
Yeah, absolutely, Audree. Thank you guys for having me on the show today, for you and Mark. So my background is about 20 plus years of construction and technology. That's everything from starting out as a project engineer, working for a heavy civil contractor doing water treatment plants, to transitioning over to the software industry, building a SaaS company that I sold in 2016. That was a construction management app. And then eventually joining Swinnerton, where I built their innovation program, and we focused on bringing robots into construction. So I've gotten to bounce back and forth and merge the two together, construction and technology. And the idea for this concept, when I was at Swinnerton, I was part of their sustainability research, and we were looking at waste streams coming off of our job sites. And what we learned was concrete and steel have recycle paths, but wood and plastics and several other building materials head straight to the landfill. And when we dug deeper, we learned it's a phenomenal amount of material. It's 37 million tons of clean lumber heads to our landfills just in the United States every year. And this is a problem around the world too, not just here in the US. And so with that, that's where the idea for Urban Machine came from, is how do we save this material, this beautiful, high quality material from the landfills? And I got to merge my construction experience, sustainability, and robotics together to solve the problem.
And we're excited for the merger. And speaking of growth, we're joined with Jory today. Jory, you've been with Urban Machine for a minute here. We've been friends for years. Introduce yourself.
I'm Jory Wisniewski. I am the marketing manager here at Urban Machine. Before this, I was doing the similar job, social media, marketing, PR, many hats for the startup world, and at Materials Exchange, a digital marketplace for lumber. So I had the wood experience, and Eric and I met online. I had done a post about lumber, and we connected, and it was kind of the best of both worlds. I got to be immersed in this community of, wood for good, wood with purpose. I keep saying hashtag wood with purpose. So it's great.
It is great. And I love that energy. I know you were invigorated with joining Urban Machine here, and you guys could make a great partnership. I'm going to start out with the first question. This is something that I really love, and this company embodies it. It's the circular economy here. So you have, as you mentioned, there's so much of this material already in the marketplace. So the constructability, the uses for reclaimed lumber, the next life of reclaimed lumber, and how this gets recovered and back in the marketplace. Take it away, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key challenge with reclaimed lumber is all these metal fasteners that did such a phenomenal job at holding our buildings together. That they're strong and they've done a great job. And so that's what's preventing the reuse. And so our technology is focused on removing all the metal from the lumber, because once it's metal free, it's just like virgin lumber. You can mill it, you can rip it, you can plane it. The only difference is it's higher quality material than what you get from the mills today, because it's older growth, it's tighter grains, and it's a touch harder. I won't try and hand pound a nail into an 80-year-old 2x4, but as far as finger joining it, milling it, you can do all kinds of things with it, just like virgin lumber. And it's beautiful, and there's a story behind it. One of the things we're going to share is how do we track that story? So when the customer is taking down, say an early 1900s warehouse that used to have XYZ manufacturer in it, we'll have that information, and we're going to throw a QR code on the board. So if that board shows up in a visible location in another building, somebody can hit that QR code and learn about that says, hey, this particular board came from this project down the street and it went through this cleaning process, and here's the history of the whole building. And that's something you can't do with other building materials. So not only do you get this beautiful high quality material, but you can actually track the story behind it and how it got to that new building and its new life.
Wow. So wood for good. And now we're telling a story. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I love it already. I love it already. It makes me super happy. So we're using reclaimed wood lumber. And when clients or companies, do you sell to the lumber yards or do you sell to consumers? Like, who is your client?
Yeah, so typically we're selling to lumber yards, wholesale lumber dealers, and wood remanufacturers. Those are our three main targets. So our goal is, right now, the reclaimed lumber market's really small. It's a really kind of a niche market. They go after really old barns and historic woods because of the labor cost to clean up the material. And so our goal is to bring down that cost to be more competitive with virgin lumber so we can expand the market and sell a lot more reclaimed lumber. You know, we want to get a lot of that 37 million tons back into the lumber industry. So it's going back into building products. And that's a lot of material, right? That's a lot of material that we want to process. And so our goal is to make all that material available to people out on the market, bring down the cost. And so anybody can build with it. But for us, we'll be doing it by the truckloads into the wholesale markets, into the distributors. And the nice thing about the lumber yards is then a contractor can order up material and say, hey, I need so much salvage material. I need some virgin lumber from their existing supply chain, those existing partnerships they have, and out rolls the truck with that load for that particular contractor.
Yeah. And Eric touched on the fact that it's so labor intensive, and the machine our goal is to clean 16,000 board feet a day. So, you know, no human is going to be able to do that. So hopefully that supply of lumber, you know, we're putting it back out into the universe.
Absolutely. That is that is breathtaking, that board foot number. When you mention the story of where it came from, that matters to people. I think of the simple fact, the first time you've had your aunt's lasagna, right? Or your grandfather's ice cream, you wanted the recipe, right? Because it wasn't so much the taste, but it's the history that comes with it. And so now a brand new building has that embodied history, right? And it has the artisan's hands, and that energy flows to the next space so that we can receive that and carry on that torch. I have a question we didn't plan for, but the fasteners and what comes out of the material, this is also a large number. If you're talking about the board footage, like there's a whole collection process of the fasteners that are removed from this fiber, correct?
Yep. And that's everything, you know, from staples that we're holding on, you know, like a plastic coating or a water barrier or something, on up to, you know, large earthquake fasteners that are using, you know, 1-inch diameter bolts running through it for a structural fastener between, you know, joists on flooring and stuff. The predominant fasteners that we see in these older buildings is nails, lots and lots of nails. You know, screws are a relatively new technology when you start looking at a 100-year window. But you know, we do see those for the buildings that have been renovated. But if we get a structure, you know, that's 80 years old, it's staples and nails. It's a predominant fastener that's coming out of those things.
And to paint a picture on the older buildings, most of us in today's society are used to this thing called paint and gypsum and drywall. But so many of the buildings had lath and plaster applications behind it. The joists and the stud structures were often rough sawn. So today we have a very well groomed and furnished SPF type product, but that rough sawn timber is absolutely gorgeous. And those nails are much the nails of today too. So you probably have a pretty collection of the different history of fasteners that come with it. I thank you for salvaging that, because it's actually making me salivate with how good this is.
It's actually one of the first stories that they told me when I came to visit in Oakland. One of our mechanical engineers was telling me about this just really old fastener, and that there's no way to really truly tell where it came from. I mean, not where it came from, but its history, other than it was in this building. It was so unique. My dad growing up was always in the fastener business. So I'm like, you got to give me a picture of this. I have to share it with my dad. He's very excited.
We have a whole
Jory,
collection.
I
of
have a
different fasteners.
relatable story. As a child, we took down my great grandfather's barn, and it was 14-inch planks, and we brought that back and we put it in, lined the entire basement. Chicagoland has basements there, but as you took down those boards, those nails we actually put in a coffee can, and then we straightened them out and used them again.
Wow.
Because why would we buy new fasteners, right? It was just it was probably because I was 6 and they wanted to keep me busy. But nonetheless, those fasteners didn't have coatings like the fasteners of today, and they have different heads, and certain fasteners were actually made on site because you would do blocks at a time. So marvelous. This is great. And Eric, we've been sitting here this whole time and we haven't brought up, you have an example of this right over your shoulder.
My beautiful material here right behind me. Absolutely. This material actually came from a building built in the 1960s here in Northern California. We've been working with demolition contractors, and they're like, how many truckloads of material do you guys want for testing? And so as we develop the materials, we've been getting truckloads of material coming off of job sites that they're taking down. And this material was actually 4x16s, beautiful 4x16s. And so we cleaned them up through our testing of our machines. We took them over to a lumber mill who ripped them down to some thin siding material here. And then we put it up on the wall behind me.
So we went through a lot of information about the circular economy, the importance of, basically retreating wood that's been in these landfills. I'd love to get in, I'm going to kind of put you on a spot a little bit. So I'm guessing you guys have a warehouse and you have these different types of machinery in there. How big is it and how many machines do you have?
Yeah, so right now we're still early on. We're only a 1.5 year old company. So the engineers are actually working on the first production version of our system. So we've built 3 prototypes over the last 1.5 years to refine the technology and get the robots pulling the nails and the staples out. And so they're building the first production ones actually directly behind this wall behind me. And that first system is going to be portable. So we're actually mounting it onto 2 40-foot flatbed trailers. And so we're going to be able to roll out to the job sites or go to a C&D facility and go process the wood as close as we can to the source. One of the things we learned early on when myself and Andrew and our team were building the first engineering prototypes, we had a tall side come dump in our warehouse, and the wood came rocketing out the back of the truck, and the wood got damaged, the fasteners got bent over, and it hit one of our machines and damaged that machine as well. That's right. Doing this in a warehouse is not going to be a good place. So we're like, hey, let's go to the job site. We don't have to use haul trucks. We can clean it up, and then we can ship it straight off on flatbeds to our customers so we can deliver a higher quality product. And because we're closer to the source, the problem's not as hard, right? The material's coming straight out of the building into our machines. So we're much more efficient that way, and much more circular as well. We can reduce that supply chain by getting close to the job sites.
I see that right away. Exactly. You're limiting the handling, and you're exactly right. The folks that dumped it out the back of the truck, that's what they're accustomed to do. So you're changing the landscape because the next time it goes on a truck, it'll be stacked. And from there, it will be organized to make a beautiful wall, or it'll go back to probably an OEM company that will be using it for XYZ product. The fact that in a 1.5 years, you're on your 3rd prototype and you're making it modular and deliverable is breathtaking to me. I can only suspect, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I bet you have 1,000 conversations, but I can only suspect that if that's what's happened in a year and a half, that your proven models will allow for this to happen in other regions and with other partners, right?
Yep, absolutely. So we'll be here in Northern California. We're based out of Oakland. We'll be running around with our trailers here in the next month and a half with our first system. We're going to try and get a second one out before the end of the year. And the next year in 24, we're going to build more systems to go deploy to other markets. We're going to focus on major metropolitan areas. That's where a lot of these older buildings are being torn down with the high quality material and where the construction of the new buildings are going up. But we're going to start to work our way outside of California into places like, Portland and Denver and Chicago and down into Texas, because all across the whole country, they've built with wood. This was the predominant building material before steel and concrete really took off in the 60s.
So a phrase that I've heard since a child was throw it away, right? When you're done with it, throw it away. And then as an adult, it progressed into the understanding of there is no way. Yep. There is no such place as a way. But again, you've changed the language. Your team and this experience has now changed it to a transformational way of being, of saying there is a way. This is exactly what we need to see. And I can't wait for the people 150 years from now to decipher what a QR code is and see that the building built in 2024 was from a building of 1920 from a tree that was planted in 1702.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. The QR code, though, then will be like the Betamax of today, right? That's so old. Why did they do it that way?
Exactly. Turn the record over, right? Because you guys
That's
are
right.
singing a new song. Urban Machine is the company to connect here. Audrey, this has been like another favorite dirt moment. This is incredible.
I know. And I think the thing that makes it there's just so many promising, there's so much promise and there's so much greater opportunity. We can just see it now, and love that you are doing something sustainable. Love that you are actually building a community within lumber and telling stories, which again, I don't know anybody that has really even thought about doing that. So that's very unique. And I would love to see how maybe even governments can actually help support you with all the things that are happening with this 2030 initiative and these global requirements of what we're looking at now. This certainly seems like a great opportunity and solution for taking down buildings, doing demos, and being able to reuse. Do you see that as possibly your future, or other than expanding your business, what else are you seeing?
Absolutely. So, there's always the carrot approach, right? Where we're trying to incentivize them with economics, but then also we see government agencies starting to push deconstruction ordinances. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these agencies are responsible for the waste disposal within their communities, right? They're responsible for permitting landfills, making sure there's enough capacity. And here in the US, those landfills are filling up. We've actually seen a couple shut down and no longer accept construction and demolition debris. And so now you're having to truck it a lot further to find a hole to put it in the ground. And I believe it's about 60 years where all the landfills in the US will be full. A lot of people think about, 60 years, that's a long time. But if you think about permitting a new landfill, that is not a long time. That is a very short amount of time. And with wood being one of the largest contributors to filling up landfills, we got to find a better use for it. And when you look at the quality of material, burying this in the ground is kind of a sin after it. These trees grew, especially these older ones, right? I mean, the trees that grew to 300, 400 years old and then were harvested back in the early 1900s, that is just beautiful material. Like Mark was talking about, that rough sawn, truly 2 by 4 inches before they started planing them down. We got to keep that and reuse it. And it's perfectly structurally sound. Right? It's strong, dry, straight, very few knots, incredibly high quality product, does not belong in the ground. And so that's our mission, is to salvage the past to build the future.
Well, you're definitely on to something amazing, and we are certainly here happy to share that conversation and allow more and more people to know about what you're doing. I just can't wait till you get more of these portable machines out there. I think that is by itself a really brilliant idea, because now we have accessibility on site with an offsite solution almost. So you're kind of
That's right.
integrating both, which makes it unique. So thank you so much, Eric. Thank you, Jory, for being here. Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely. Mark, I'm going to have you close us out.
I tell you, this is a childhood dream that many people never even knew. And the culmination of that experience in software and robotics and the appreciation of what Mother Nature has given to us has allowed for technology to be front and center, and an award of purpose, as Jory said, to these great materials. I look for all of our friends to connect with Urban Machine. Jory and Eric are very reachable. I'm sure the rest of their team is just as brilliant of human beings as they are. And check them out, start the dialogue, and get one of those machines in your community, and send them the pictures, add the QR codes, start the next Urban Machine story. Thank you. This is OffSite Dirt with the Dirt.
Different understanding.